I'm Fatheree.
This is Dave.
And this is Tex-Trek.
Engage.
So, welcome back aboard the Starship Texas for the 85th installment of the Tex-Trek podcast, your home of Star Trek fandom from deep in the heart of Texas, where we talk all about Star Trek, old and new. We don't really talk about the old much anymore, because there's so much of the new Star Trek to talk about.
The old stuff, that's Grandpa's Star Trek. We don't even need it anymore, and I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, even though the one of the shows that we're talking about today does star a Grandpa.
That's true.
With Patrick Stewart.
All right, we'll allow it.
But yes, we are going to finally talk about all the news from New York Comic Con last weekend, including not just Star Trek PICARD, but also Star Trek Discovery.
Yep.
And these short treks that they just surprise dropped on us all of a sudden.
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff going on, but I guess we knew New York Comic Con was going to have some hotness going on. So.
Yeah, they definitely like to do the big announcement stuff at San Diego and at New York, and we're here to cover all of it and go over all of the new details that we get from Kurtzman and Company and CBS All Access, and then report back to you.
Yep, we're going to tell you what to think.
Well, we'll tell you what we think, and then you can draw your own conclusions.
They better fucking follow what I say.
No, we need infinite diversity and infinite combinations.
All right, but only because you said that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're going to be right.
Yeah.
Even when...
That's all I ask.
Even when we disagree, we're still both right.
That's right. It's weird, but it is true.
Yes. But yeah, so... apologies for not having this out last week, but we had to shut down for a little bit. There was actually our friend Trenton, who has appeared on Tex-Trek a few times, was getting married last weekend, and so everyone can leave a comment and say congratulations to Trent, and he would appreciate that.
It was a Betazoid wedding. So it was kind of an unusual affair.
I had to go spend some time in the gym before, and it still didn't help that much.
You got to get rock hard.
Well, we are going to talk about the new Short Trek episodes next week.
Yep.
We had to push that back a little bit to take the time to break down all this Trek news that we have to talk about.
I'm excited about those Short Trek ones because I think you and I are going to have some interesting disagreements and some agreements, but I think it's going to be feisty. So I'm looking forward to it.
For little 15-minute stories, it's weird how opinionated I think we might be over some of the stuff in there.
I definitely will be about one of them.
But come back next week to check that out.
In the meantime, we're going to be like... These trailers have kind of mostly been filling me with enthusiasm. You know, the original PICARD trailer, we're like both watching it with tears streaming down our eyes, and it's the second coming. So it's been the trailers have been really fun for both that and I wasn't sure. Well, let me just ask you: were you looking more forward to Disco or the PICARD trailer of these two?
I was definitely looking forward to the PICARD trailer more. Simply because I'm so excited to see a post-Berman era Star Trek, post-24th century, post TNG Voyager DS9, which I guess technically both of these shows are going to be now. But I want to see, the continuation of PICARD and also Seven of Nine and Riker and Troy and who knows who else might show up. The Discovery thing is still weird. I don't know how I feel about them going in the future. Like I've said before, I was actually okay with not everything they did, but a lot of what they did with the 23rd century. And I would have preferred they just tried a little harder and got better at presenting their version of the 23rd century.
Right.
Instead, they just leaped past the time of Kirk, past the time of Picard, Sisko, Janeway, everybody, 1,000 years in the future, where they can just do whatever the hell they want, and it freaks me out a little bit.
Yeah, I think until we kind of see a few episodes, we're going to be in freak-out mode.
But I'm still optimistic, and I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Like you, I was more enthused to see the Picard trailer than I was Disco. But of the two of them, I believe I like the Disco trailer more. I don't know if we're ready to jump into one of those, but right into it. But that's just where, in my basics, where I landed.
Yeah, so we'll stick a pin in the Picard talk for now.
Okay.
We're going to talk about Discovery Season 3. We'll start off just talking about the trailer, breaking it down for you. And then we'll talk about what we learned about Discovery Season 3 at the Star Trek Universe panel at New York Comic Con.
All right, let's do it.
Yeah, so the Discovery trailer opens with Michael Burnham, we can assume recently landing in the future, 930 years. This will put her in the 32nd century, still in the Red Angel suit.
Yep. She's going to be separate. I at least got the vibe that she's going to be separate from the crew, and that I don't know if they're separate from each other in any way, but there will be reunion a little ways into it. But they were all in. Were they in the Discovery?
Yeah, everyone else was in the ship except for her.
Okay, so they got to have some adventures on their own for a little bit.
Yeah,
both sides.
She's going to be spending some time with the new character Cleveland Booker, who we know is played by, if you've watched Supergirl, the Manchester Black actor, but his name is David Ajala. He's also appeared on Doctor Who. We also see some Andorians with weird future weapons that send off shockwaves, and they're still like the prickly forehead Andorians from Discovery.
I think I'm down with that version. Is to go ahead and take over. I thought they looked pretty good. Is that the Discovery version? Is that the same as the Enterprise version?
No, the Enterprise, it's
because they had some forehead stuff going on.
Yeah, but they didn't have the spikes coming out like they do on Discovery. But it makes them literally prickly.
It's a little bit weird, but that's almost a little too cute. But what that does is it immediately establish a core Federation race that they will be returning in it. So I'm happy. I was happy to just see Andorians.
Yeah.
And not
I feel like we've seen a lot of them lately, though. So I'd kind of be okay if we got let the Tellarites get some more spotlight or something.
But the Tellarites have shown there was a Tellarite featured throughout the Harry Mudd short track.
Even though we've never seen Tellar Prime. As Larry Nemeczek, Dr. Trek loves to point out, that is the only founder race of the Federation that we have never visited their homeworld.
I think with each successive new version of what Tellarites look like, I maybe like them a little bit less. And I kind of miss this sort of more benign looking, just argumentative but not warrior looking ones of TOS. But we are not going to see them, but we will see some other Trek notable aliens before the trailer is over.
And we see this...
By the way, you have to quick say, when Burnham goes through several hot hairstyles, as she's clearly just wasting time or bored, I guess, right?
Well, it looks like some time passes while she's stranded away from the rest of the ship, I'm assuming. And
so there was what looked like a montage scene where she's like, let's try this haircut, let's try this one, who knows, what about this? But it kind of looked a little fun. So it's probably going to be during the opening, I bet, to catch up.
So not only do they arrive at her and the ship arrive at different locations, but they might arrive at different points in time, where maybe she shows up a few years early or something.
Maybe so. I guess I just assumed it might just take a little while for them to kind of find each other. It's a big universe.
But it looks like the Federation might be less big.
Did we know anything about this before this?
No, they haven't. They really haven't described what's going on that much. But from the few vague details that have been conveyed to us, we can tell that this is going to be a crippled Federation if it's still standing at all. And from this flag that only has 6 stars on the Federation flag, I'm thinking this is a visual communication of the fact that the Federation has shrunk.
Yeah,
that worlds have broken away.
Right. Or for all we know, been destroyed. Maybe the Borg got him. Maybe anything happened.
And we get some dialogue from a kind of an official looking, possibly authority figure, maybe a future Federation president. But he doesn't preside over much because the Federation is so small and weak.
Right.
In this future. But he says that Burnham is possibly the hope that they need. And maybe, I know the Burnham haters are going to like this, but maybe she'll be like the savior of the Federation that can restore it to its former glory.
Right. I do sometimes dislike the need for, like, ship captains to be saviors on that level, outside of, like, an individual
people who aren't even the captain, but they're just the main character of the show.
That's perfectly fine with me.
And I like Michael Burnham, but yeah, they do kind of make her the center of the universe.
Yeah, that said, I always have to make a comic book reference, and in DC Comics, their future version, their kind of superheroes in a Star Trek time is called Legion of Superheroes. And
that's like in the 31st century, so
right? But it's irrelevant.
Closer to this time period.
It's a Trek-like utopian future most of the time.
Right. Humans have learned to like get along with aliens.
Right. And that began way back in like late 50s or early 60s in Superboy comics because he like inspired them.
Well, in Adventure Comics, but
right,
starring Superboy.
Primarily, they have it has been a sort of a Trek-like vision of the future. But when I came into the series, when I got on board, it was in the early or mid 90s when they were doing what they call the 5 years later run, which was a time when there was like a galactic depression going on, like an economic depression. There was widespread warfare. Earth was occupied by like alien occupiers. And all the characters they gave a little bit of age to. And, like, I know among some of the fans, they were distinctly like, F this version, this is not the utopian version we were raised with. A little bit similar to the arguments that, like, Discovery and probably DS9 hit. And, but it is something that I loved about that run. And is actually the Fallen Federation, even though it feels a little bit like a cheap plot point, and even a little bit like, I kind of don't like the idea that the Federation slumps that hard.
It bothers me too.
But at the same time, I know there's a part of me that's fascinated by stories like this, by the people who have those ideals, but are so on the ropes as to have all of the normal Federation post-scarcity advantages taken away from them. I'm interested to see what do they do when they don't have the resources that the Federation traditionally has. So that part intrigues me. Are you interested in that notion?
I really don't know how to feel about this, to be honest, because part of it is just like weird fanboyish continuity, but it's because it's actually something that I really liked, and it comes from there's an episode of
Enterprise
of DS9 where there's actually a projection of the future done by some characters on that show. I don't want to spoil that episode.
Thank you.
But they basically predict that, like, if the Federation surrenders to the Dominion and loses the war, there's going to be a resistance that forms up in a few hundred years, and then eventually they'll be able to regain control, and a new Federation will form that will reign in a peaceful utopia society for thousands of years to come.
Right.
And it makes me sad that, like, the actual future that unveils is not as good as what those people had predicted.
Right. This is a little bit of the problem that that any ongoing franchise runs into, which is to say, if it's a kind of a heroic sort of franchise, heroic adventure series, that, the characters, you want them to have their big victories, but you always need to have some terrible trouble that's just around the corner, because you need that sort of dynamism going on. Now, this is jumping way forward in the future when they should have, like, pretty interesting options, and you could even hypothetically have a Federation at its full potency and still being challenged by something, and it doesn't even have to be just like the Borg. It could be something that's...
Yeah, but by then, like, the Federation would be so advanced, you'd have to make it, like, Super Borg, or... It has to become so extreme.
Well,
really,
see,
the only way to
I don't think it has to... Well, at least hypothetically, I could be interested if it wasn't a straight-up threat. If, say, there were philosophical divisions causing it, it can be coupled with threats like, and we need the Federation strong to deal with them. But
we've seen like the 29th century of Star Trek and the 31st century of Star Trek, and things are so advanced then, and they seem like they would be so powerful that I feel like the only way to tell a story that's post that would be to weaken the Federation.
I don't know, like, people living in the year 1200 would probably see the technology we've got and be like, my God, how can there, nothing could challenge anybody then. They're going to have to be, like, unified and, like...
You remember, like, I know you saw Crewman Daniels in Enterprise, who's, like, the agent from the future?
Yeah.
I mean, like, when you get to that level of technology where you can just, like, appear anywhere in space and time at the touch of a button... It's going to be very hard to have a threat that can go against those people.
Right. Given the future bits they've shown, and that was like really my whole concern was that the future wouldn't feel Star Trek-y because everything would be so super teched up. One solution to that, apparently the one that they went with, is that they went back to caveman times or basically had some sort of regression or hit a brick wall of warfare, technology limitations, something happened. Maybe it was fractious philosophies and civil wars, but
that gives you an arc. That gives you a story to tell.
It does. It does.
Our heroes pick up the pieces and rebuild it.
I had just wrapped my mind. I was working up my mind to be wrapped around the idea of this wild future where even they weren't up to date on the newest technology, and they had to be the kind of the primitives. And then they kind of spring on it this arc that's going to be them rebuilding a fallen Federation. That's a pretty potent, legendary type idea. I want to like the idea, but it also seems a little easy, almost or kind of cheap. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, it's like none of this to me seems more interesting than Star Trek Picard at all. This is. Out of the 3 shows we're getting next year, this is the one I'm looking forward to the least.
Oh, interesting. So I did like the trailer, though, and part of what I liked about it was a bit of the seeing old friends vibe. At this point, I really like most of the Discovery leads, and there are glimpses of them reuniting. You see Saru kind of doing one of those, a Saru speech.
Yeah, which we see him and Tilly together.
Yep.
We got to talk about the Trill stuff.
Yes.
We see what is clearly the Trill homeworld, and the caves, which are home to if you're familiar with the Trill species, they are inhabited by a slug that forms a symbiotic relationship with the host body.
And visually distinct, although they always have the
spots on
the spots that trail down
from their foreheads down
on their sides,
all the way down, as Judge Zia described it when someone asked her how far down do her spots go.
Right.
And we see the what might be a new character in the cave where you lay it in the water, I guess, to be joined with they do it in like a medical procedure. We saw that on DS9, but we do know that like in these caves there are these pools where the symbiotes live. Mm-hmm. It's like these little slug creatures, and then they can be installed inside of the humanoid body host.
Right.
But we do see this chick with short dark hair. We see a couple of shots of her in the trailer. So I'm wondering if that's going to be a new character.
Right. Her and several other Trills. Or Trill. Do you say Trills or Trill?
Trill. There's no S.
Got it.
But I do wonder if she's going to be a new character, because it kind of looks like we see her in the engineering section of Discovery.
Mm-hmm.
Or the spore drive room. And we also see another shot of her in what I think is a Jeffries tube on the Discovery. And here it looks like she doesn't have any spots, so I'm not sure what's going on with her.
Well, is it possible that is simply before the joining?
But they always have their spots. Like, even an unjoined Trill has those spots.
Oh, okay, that's just standard. Also glimpsed in those is, among the various crew members of the Discovery who went through, is Georgiou. Mirror Universe Georgiou.
Yeah.
Who I'll be curious
at some
to
point
see.
Is going to get her own show, we've been told.
Yeah, unless they're going to surprise us and have Section 31 in the future.
No, I think she's going to fall back in time or something.
I think so too, but I guess like if I were eyeing this with the mercenary eyes of a Mirror Universer and a Section 31 Empire builder, an era of fractiousness where you could build from the ground up.
Oh, she could build her empire back. That might be what she's thinking.
Yeah, I could see her being like, no, you guys go back. I'll stay in the future. I'll get this ball rolling.
It'll be
why anyone would trust her to do that would be something the show is going to have to convince me of.
And we've talked about before how she was much more menacing in season 1 of Discovery than season 2.
Yum yum.
Exactly. So it'll be interesting to see if they play her as more of a threat or more as just like the good guy that she kind of became in season 2.
She can be the bad cop good guy is the role she ended up playing, I think.
Yeah. I would kind of like them to lean more into her menacing side because I think that was a little bit more honest to the character set up in season 1 and how we think of people from the Mirror Universe, especially with how vile they made it in Discovery.
Right. Literally, like, we know these people do genocide stuff.
Yeah.
So, speaking you've got it frozen right now on an image that's more aliens and more these. Yes. They look like they're wearing these kind of pale, like, desert uniforms that almost look like they could be a rebel group.
Yeah, and they have, like, weird future weapons that are like these arm cannons that look like a Metroid gun.
Yes. Looks like Samus's gun in its way with a sort of a pink kind of pulse coming from it.
They also look like a possible, like, masturbation toy. But,
That's what you tell me the internet has said. I haven't seen it on the internet, so I presume it comes from you, but...
well, regardless, the most exciting thing about this fleshlight gang that we see storming the beach here is not only is there some more... Not only are there more Andorians...
Yes, but there's also...
There's also a Lurian, a.k.a. Morn species.
Yeah.
Which is super awesome to see.
Yeah, Morn looks like he's storming the beaches of Normandy here.
Even though they play it...
Normandy.
Oh, maybe that's how I got the name. No, but like, if you're not familiar, he's the Barfly character from Deep Space Nine, who is a...
You just made a name joke, and I know people are right now, they're like, no, let me tell you where the name came from. We know where the name came from.
But he's a fan favorite character. I think it's interesting that this Lurian is also bald, because they point out in DS9 that, like, Morn used to have hair, and then he went bald. I guess this guy also did. And there's also a Cardassian behind him. And I am a huge fan of Michael Westmore's makeup design. He worked on Star Trek from 1987 to 2005, aka the years I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
And the designs that he came up with, especially on DS9, I think had like the strongest alien designs with the Cardassians, and there's a bunch of Klingons on there, and also like the Jem'Hadar, and but I love...
It's good stuff.
I love seeing a Cardassian, I love seeing a Lurian. I think that the alien makeup in Discovery goes to an extreme. They try to make things look as inhuman and a strange new world, and like undiscovered new species, and just literally alien as possible. And I feel like Michael Westmore had a better eye for some of these stronger designs that can still look incredibly inhuman, but they still allow the actors to emote.
Right. I mean, arguably, like, I think there have been times over the years when I've thought I want them to look weirder, I want the aliens to be more alien. But the truth is that Star Trek, maybe exclusively through budget limitations, but I think also because it's the kind of story that Gene wanted to tell, essentially cast many aliens as stand-ins for certain human ideas and subcultures
like
and
take
things
the
like
Ferengi,
that.
for example. They're a perfect example of that. But they still have a very strong design.
Right.
And I think they still look very inhuman.
Right. And at the very least, even if someone is like, I wish Trek had weirder aliens and was more science fiction-y and like kind of realistic about their aliens, it's not the tradition. The tradition has always been sort of the humanoid aliens.
And there's a canonical explanation for that. Watch the episode of TNG, The Chase.
Right, is that with the seeding of the stuff? Yeah. But yeah, I like it too. I think it's a good balance for Trek, and I think I might agree with you that they veered a little too far into showing off with it. I like letting the makeup guys do imaginative stuff, but I think Saru is a good kind of limit of that, and that it's fun to always let the humans, the human actors underneath the makeup, do as much as they can to emote and bring something to the role, with the occasional Horta or the crystalline and Tholians. Occasional Horta.
Give us some of that stuff.
But... Yeah, obviously you need that occasionally, but yeah, this is pretty cool looking. It looks very Star Trek.
Yeah, but even though, like I said, like I'm not as excited about Discovery as I am about Picard, and all that is just because the story that they're telling to me is not as exciting as reconnecting with all those old friends and that seeing that time period that Picard is going to be seeing. But I don't see anything in here that I dislike. I have some reservations about the Fallen Federation, but I can still see this being a good story that I enjoy.
Were there any trailers
to it?
Were there any trailers at all for it before, or is this the first one?
This is the first trailer.
Okay. I think what I liked about it is I liked all the little glimpses of the traditional Federation aliens. I liked seeing the crew again. I liked sort of seeing that they had like a plainclothes look going on where
that's not really. You like seeing the crew. Of course, the crew is going to be in it.
I know. I'm just saying, like, it excited me. Picard, right out of the gates, I loved the first trailer, but there was some stuff in the second one, like the second trailer, which we'll get to shortly, where, like, there were several things that I kind of didn't like in it. And they weren't big things, but it was like a series of, like, I wouldn't have done that moments. Whereas Disco, at the very least, was all kind of like, little tug at the heartstrings reunions with the whether it's with the characters, with the idea of Starfleet. I kind of at least like the idea of trying to rebuild Starfleet from a fallen place. So that's why I think I liked this one more than you did. Overall, yeah, I see it as promising. I guess it has the same potential issues as anything in Discovery does, which is to say, it might be a little bit more action-y than it is thoughtful, and
not even action-y, just like more like fast-paced and too much about like trying to produce an emotional moment without putting in the necessary effort before that to build up to it.
Right.
And just trying to move to the next big moment after that.
In season 2, which had a lot good going for it, who was the character who died, the android? What was her name?
Ariam.
That would be a prime example, you know?
Yeah, I would call, like, there's, sometimes Discovery, it seems to be leaning into unearned
emotional beats.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can agree with that. But what else we got?
And I don't see that changing much, but I still enjoy the show. But so the panel that they had at New York Comic Con, they had a lot of the cast on stage, including David Ajala, the newcomer, as Cleveland Booker, or AKA Book. And one of the
we presume he's a denizen of the future, right?
Yes, yeah. He's the native that they have to. I guess
he's going to be the guide.
Burnham's going to be the point of view character, and he's going to be the one who's like, well, let me tell you everything you missed out on over the last 1,000 years.
Sure.
But he seems excited to be on the show, and one of the things that he talked about was he wasn't necessarily a Trekkie, but he was always kind of aware of Star Trek, and he said that he would have felt bad about turning this job down because he knew that if he saw someone else doing it, it would have made him so jealous.
Yeah.
And now that he's part of the Star Trek family, he could do convention circuits the rest of his life.
Sure.
And
that sounds like a nightmare to me, but it's a certain, I guess.
It's like guaranteed income for the rest of his life.
I'm not talking about income. And I don't know that the income is great on the convention circuit, but it also, like, it's the exact kind of attention that sounds unpleasant to me, which is everybody kind of revering you for something that is just one snippet of your acting resume, going to conventions when you'd rather be doing anything else. I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I thought you were going to say, though, that, like, he was just going to, like, be into it because, you know, once you're part of the Star Trek family, it is closer to a family in the post-TOS era, and there's a lot of good friends and relationships. And it does seem like the shows are rewarding those characters now with returns and stuff like that. So I would want to be part of the Star Trek family if I could, but I would not for going to conventions.
Well, you could be like Tim Russ and just go and not enjoy it and be miserable.
Is that him?
Yeah.
That's too bad. I almost guarantee that is what I would be doing. Actually, you know what? I like being around people well enough. I think I'd be okay.
And They did reveal a few details here, but I mean, they kept things for the most part very vague. They never really clarified what the Discovery's role would be. We assume it's tied into like the Weekend Federation. They teased that there's going to be a decision about who's going to be the new captain. Is it going to be Burnham? Is it going to be Saru? We don't know. That's going to be part of the season. Kurtzman did say that things are going to look much different 930 years further into the future.
Sorry, I have to quick backtrack. Quick dark horse candidate, I say it's going to end up being Tilly. There's some weird circumstances, even though she wouldn't be the obvious one.
No, that's dumb.
All right.
There was a question from someone in the audience that I appreciated, where he said, hey, I really liked how you did some of the 23rd century stuff. Can we get that Captain Pike show?
Oh, yeah.
To which Alex Kurtzman said, you want a Pike show? Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I'll see if I can get that approved. And, being very coy about it. So clearly, there's something still going on there. I don't know why they haven't confirmed this show yet, or if it's not going to happen, I don't know why they haven't said.
Well, the reason they might not have confirmed it would just be that you can leverage a good announcement at the right time into something special. And right now, there's a lot of announcements going on about Disco and Picard, and you wouldn't want it to be lost in the shuffle. So I can imagine that they may be like, we're just waiting for a quieter time so we can roll it out as an announcement then.
Yeah, but they've had a long time. Like we've had some quiet time for a while. I think it would be
maybe Rebecca Romaine is holding out for a bigger paycheck.
I think it would be a great idea to announce it now to promote these short treks that are coming out that are about that crew and that ship with Number One and Spock in the Enterprise.
Yeah.
But there is another cool question from the audience where someone asked if Alex Kurtzman had seen the Aaron Eisenberg.
The petition.
Asked Alex Kurtzman if he had seen the petition about getting Captain Nog referenced in Star Trek after the recent death of Aaron Eisenberg.
Have we talked about that? Because hats off to him.
No, our last podcast was being edited right when that news came out.
Very sad thing. He was really very young.
Yeah, he was 51, I think.
Yeah.
And
but the fans are rallying in a really beautiful way.
Yeah, and Nog is a perfect Star Trek character. He had a wonderful arc. He is he very much embodies a bunch of the ideals of Star Trek. And Kurtzman said that yes, we're aware of the petition, and we would love to do that somehow in some of the shows. So I would love if either Picard had a statue of Captain Nog at Starfleet headquarters, or if they somehow mention
reference it
in Discovery.
Yeah.
But that would be so cool.
That would be really awesome, and I think the fan community would be so meaningful to them, and as well as I think it would just fit. I would think it would fit in a story, like you said. He reflects a very potent idea of behind Starfleet. So I think it's a win-win if they do it.
Yeah, and just one last thing I want to say is that when I was at Star Trek Las Vegas 2 months ago, I saw Aaron Eisenberg. He was actually the first Trek actor that I ran into there. And I was actually in a restaurant eating, and I saw him walking around, talking to people, shaking people's hands, smiling. He was always so energetic and so happy. And I got to see him he put the Ferengi makeup back on and did a cool little skit on stage with a couple other actors. They do their Ferengi family hour little skit that they perform.
Yeah.
And you could tell that he had a blast, not just working on the show whenever he would talk about all of his good memories about being on DS9, with just being Aaron Eisenberg at a convention. Kind of the opposite of Tim Russ.
Yeah.
He loved that. He loved being around the fans, and it is sad to see him go. I would love to see him honored in a new Star Trek format somehow.
That is cool. You got to see him embracing those sort of moments of happiness that I'm glad to know he was living before the end. As sad as that is to sort of think about, but it is cool that you got to see that, and I'm glad for him. So hopefully this will come to fruition.
But enough about Discovery and their weird future season 3. We're gonna talk about Star Trek Picard. And their weird use of a Starfleet captain as a wine maker, brewer. What do you call a wine vineyard person? A winery, winer.
A vintner?
I don't know. But whatever.
I think it's a vintner.
They took the most iconic Starfleet captain out of space and put him on Earth growing a bunch of grapes and made a show about it.
Well, that's part of the character's history. It's a thing. You know what? To me, in a way, the coolest thing about this trailer was like there's lots of cool stuff in the trailer, but I loved seeing the old school Romulan bird of prey. The TOS era bird of prey shows up in at least 2 clips that I saw.
Yeah,
and to the point where I was like, wait, that's not the ship that they're in, is it? And it's not.
No, but we do see that they're what I believe is going to be our hero's ship, which is going to be called the La Sirena, which is Spanish for mermaid. There's also a food truck here in Austin, Texas called La Sirena. They have like seafood and Mexican food.
Well, you think Picard's going to take that over too?
Maybe. He can be captain of that as well as his vineyard.
We would be happy to have him.
He can hook you up with a bottle of wine or with a shrimp taco.
Man, I would be all about it. Do we have any notion as to like what the imagery of a mermaid might have to do with the episode? Like, does it is there any obvious metaphor that it stands for?
No, I think
part of one civilization, part of another.
I think they just gave it a Spanish name because it's captained by a Hispanic character.
Fair enough, and also it's mermaid is a classic ship-sounding name. It's like a vessel, like an ocean
nautical.
Going.
It's nautical.
That's the word I was looking for. Now this begins.
Yeah, the trailer starts off with the vineyard and what we must assume is a dream sequence of Picard and Data in their old TNG uniforms, or at least like the season 3 onward version.
Yep.
Which is surprising to see again. We see Data painting some artwork that might be foreshadowing the story with Daj, the young lady character that we know is in the show. Right. We see Picard waking up from the dream with his faithful companion number 1.
So yeah, we see officially, I believe, the dog named as number 1. Well,
yes.
We knew it, but we hadn't seen it
This
spoken.
is the first time that we actually hear it.
Yeah, he's in his nice rustic home, but he's, as we had seen in the previous trailer, he's clearly dissatisfied with the life he's leading, and is even there's a clear sense that he is ready to get back in the thick of things when trouble falls into his hands.
Yeah. You can take the captain out of space, but you can't take the space out of the captain.
For sure.
And I like the idea of him trying. In the last trailer, he says something along the lines I really tried to make this work, and I can't do it. It's not for me.
Yeah.
But we see him meet up with Daj, who is the very mysterious character we know so little about, but we know that whatever her role is, she is clearly the one who gets Picard to snap back into action.
Right. She wants him to do something, and he wants the Federation to kind of support it in some way, and they clearly don't get behind it.
There's some similarities with the other Star franchise here, where I would say that it reminds me of when Obi-Wan Kenobi sees the hologram of Princess Leia saying, "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're our only hope."
Yep.
And he has to spring back into action and become Action Kenobi.
And go and commission a ship to take him off on his adventures. I can see that.
We also get a look at Starfleet Academy, or Starfleet HQ, or really we get a good shot of just, I guess, the Bay Area and Golden Gate Bridge, which I thought was a reuse of a shot in Star Trek Discovery. Mm-hmm. It's actually kind of the same shot, but they've added some more buildings in the background.
Okay.
I think it's weird that they have these solar panels on the Golden Gate Bridge in the time of Discovery and in the time of Picard. But we see the Golden Gate Bridge in between there, and there are no solar panels. So I guess I took them down for a century and then put them back up. I don't know. But and we also see the Anaheim Convention Center doubling as a Starfleet building.
Speaking of the weird real world bits, there's some scene, and it only occurred to me when I was watching this the third time, where Picard is going down an escalator, and it just felt weird. There's no particular reason I think escalators shouldn't be in Star Trek, other than they don't feel super future-y.
It looks like he's at the mall or something.
It looks like he's at the mall, and they just don't feel you can have hover platforms and other spacey things, but an escalator seems a little bit 1980s. That said, I'm fine with it.
What did you think of this holographic look of the Enterprise D?
You are still framing on it right now, and I don't think I really processed it when I was watching it before. Where is this occurring?
This is when he goes to Starfleet.
Okay, so this is like shown as like it would be some kind of, if not memorial, but like a tribute, like a giant holographic version, almost like a museum piece sort of thing, right? Is that the vibe?
Yeah,
it looks cool. Like it looks neat.
Maybe in this room they actually have like holograms of like all the Enterprises.
Yeah.
Maybe
I want it so you can go up and manipulate it the way you do stuff on your phone. And so like it starts out small and you're like, I want to expand it. And then I want to like zoom in on this section. And you know, you can move it around like haptic stuff and tour through it. That'd be cool. I guess at that point you might as well just holodeck it though.
What I think is cool is that we're actually seeing some of the actual designs. They haven't been tweaked. They haven't been reimagined.
Yeah, true. As I'm looking at this is not doesn't particularly look like a tweaked version of it.
Yeah, it's not like on Discovery where they're like, oh, we got to change like the 1701 Enterprise. It can't look exactly the same as it did in the 60s. But here it's like, yeah, we're just going to show you the Enterprise from the 80s. We're just going to show you the Starfleet uniforms from the 80s, the comm badge from the 80s. Yeah. I like that, and I think it was probably a reaction to some of the backlash the Discovery's gotten.
I mean, yeah, at the very same time, in Short Treks, we've got, you know, the re-envisioned version of the Enterprise going on.
Which they do a good job with. I like those visuals, but I would love it if I could just see more of the same.
Like even closer to the original. Obviously not exactly the same, but closer.
We also get a better look at the Starfleet uniform than what we've seen previously. The new Picard era uniform, which is more similar to the Voyager uniform than anything else. And more on this comm badge in a second. I got something from the actual panel to discuss. But we see Picard have a disagreement with an admiral, where she seems reluctant to do whatever he thinks is necessary. And so this might be why he goes kind of rogue. He kind of goes Star Trek 3, where he has to get his own crew together on his own ship.
I feel like since Star Trek 3... Star Trek has very often wanted to return to that well of having the crew on the run from Starfleet or break in orders and stuff like that.
Amok Time, they clearly break orders. Like it was before Star Trek 3 sometimes.
I guess I feel like Star Trek 3 was the sexiest version.
This is an odd opinion. This is rare, but my favorite Star Trek movie.
I knew that it was high on your list. Is that a recent realization?
No,
that you've had?
I felt that for like the last few years, and then when we did our movie discussion earlier this year,
solidified in your head.
Solidified.
Okay, mine is of course Generations. I'm only partially joking because I did end up liking that movie a lot more than I expected, and more than anybody else on the Earth apparently.
That's in my bottom 3. But
all right,
that's.
On with the show. On with the show, lest we sidetrack. Let's talk about these data androids or whatever they are.
Yeah, we got one with an F8 on his head, so we know...
what do they look like? They're humanoid? They have the sort of slightly off-colored
they have the yellow eyes,
skin?
They have the yellow eyes, the white skin of Data. But with the F8, we know that Dr. Soong loved the whimsical name, so maybe his name is Fate. Maybe he's a Soong-type android.
When you say it's that, just for those who are listening and not watching, it's literally printed on his head, F8. Which is a little weird because, I mean, I guess that means he's in like some beta test mode or whatever. Because, like, Data doesn't have his name printed on his head.
Or this might be someone else who's building Soong's type androids.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't have Dr. Soong's face like Data and Lore and B4 all
I will be interested to see, like, that is an interesting question to answer, is like, what becomes of Data and his potential replication and lineage of the idea of everything that Soong did.
And one of our characters we'll get to in a moment is a cyberneticist.
Right.
But we see some more shots of what we believe is from the last trailer is a Borg cube that's been taken over by Romulans. We're not really sure what's going on with that. But that might tie into Picard's mission that he goes on with Dodge. And we think that this is what forces him to put like a ragtag crew together. Almost like kind of like some Firefly Serenity vibes here.
A little bit, yeah. Whenever you see somebody in those kind of that sort of brown coat look, something that like is a little bit Western or at the very least a sort of plain clothes look, it can start to feel a little Firefly, and the ragtag crew just solidifies it. But it's a cool look.
So let's go over the characters that we get here. We know that we have Michelle Hurd's character Raffi, which looks like Picard takes a shuttle to Vasquez Rock to meet up with her.
Favorite location.
Strangely enough, the shuttlecrafts in this trailer look a lot like the Discovery shuttles. And I'm kind of hoping that these are just like temporary stand-ins they're using, and like the special effects haven't finished the new shuttlecrafts, and they're actually going to look different on the show.
Probably not.
Because if these are actually identical or that similar to the Discovery shuttles, that's kind of terrible and lazy.
That's a weird use of budget. Like, they have all this money, like, don't make, a shuttle from 100 years prior look the same.
But yeah, we see Picard go and meet with her. We see Picard meet with Alison Pill's character, Dr. Agnes Girardi. She is the cyberneticist I mentioned before.
Right, so she might have something to do with the various datas we see.
Yeah, and in the previous trailer, I think she is the character we see with Picard when they open up that case that has, like, the data pieces inside.
Right, the data butt.
Like, we don't know if they're, like, rebuilding lore, or if it's another android altogether, or what's going on there. And then we get to see some Romulans with the character Elnor, played by Evan Evagora, a.k.a. Romulan Legolas.
Yep. Long hair, sword, looks like a badass.
Pointy ears. And we also get the captain of the La Serena, Cristobal Rios, a.k.a. Chris, played by Santiago Cabrera.
Okay.
And he's smoking a cigar, which we don't see many smokers in Star Trek. But there is a precedent. It has happened before.
Yeah, it's a little weird to me, but sure, whatever.
And we know that this character is like ex-Starfleet. He was kicked out. He was a bad guy. He was a rebel.
You think he's going to be a little bit more of what Tom Paris was meant to be?
Supposed to be.
Yeah.
I think he's been described as a thief. So I think he's going to be a legit criminal. Maybe Picard can come in and make him live up to his potential and become a better man instead of this low-life scoundrel.
Maybe so. Or maybe he'll end up just like Benicio del Toro in Last Jedi. A scumbag.
There's some more Borg shots. We see the Borg cube. We see some somewhat gory, disassembled Borg body parts, and a 7 of 9 crying with what I believe we can assume is probably like an ex-Borg or like an unborgified Borg who died. Maybe like these Romulans are like experimenting on Borgs or something like that. And we get a shot of our ship, the La Serena, which has kind of this cool asymmetrical look. Kind of like the
Millennium Falcon,
like the crime ship from that other Star franchise.
Yeah,
I think it's asymmetrical.
You say the crime ship?
I mean, that's what it was. It was that ship smuggled drugs.
Yeah, I'm just amused by the term crime ship. I think that's how he should have been.
Sometimes,
so you guys want to book passage on my crime ship?
Sometimes in science fiction, you have crime ships.
Yeah, I'm down with it.
And of course, we see our Romulan bird of prey from Balance of Terror has made its return.
Considerably more maneuverable in these shots.
It looks a little bit different. They add a little detail to the paneling, but a very faithful depiction of it.
Yeah.
Which I think is just bonkers that the ship is still around 140 years after it showed up in TOS.
Right. Well, either it's like an old one that somebody. I mean, maybe it's a plot point. Maybe that could even be a flashback for all we know, right? Do we see?
No, it's because it's with the La Serena.
Oh, we do see it with
what I believe is the La Serena.
Okay, maybe it's one of those things where they just got to like bust out like an old Sherman tank from mothballs for an escape plan or something. The equivalent of doing that.
So, if anyone wants to hear about crazy kid Fatheree, when I was a young boy, a fan of Star Trek, I had this idea for a future Star Trek show that I hope to one day grow up and
produce.
I didn't know the term showrunner, but I wanted to be the showrunner on this show. Mm-hmm. And it would have been bonkers. It would have had a lot of space piratey type things. Was a big theme of mine. Also, like characters that were like half of one alien species, half of another.
Yeah.
So I had like a guy who was like half Romulan, half Bajoran.
Yep.
And
you kind of want to do Star Trek, but through your kid's mind, badass Star Trek, right?
Yeah, it would have been pretty badass.
Yeah.
But and a lot of the things I came up with actually, like JJ ripped off, like having characters listen to contemporary music and people who could like whip out a sword out of a little pocket-like device, or the ship going down underwater. Were all things that I thought up when I was like 12. But one idea...
Consider a lawsuit, please.
One idea that I had was the bird of prey from A Mock Time. I loved that design. I actually had like the Kenner toy that came out in the early 90s, probably.
Okay.
And I thought it would be so cool if that like some post TNG era in like the 25th century maybe, you had this guy who took an old TOS era Romulan bird of prey and souped it up and made like a badass starship that he could just go and go rogue and do whatever the hell he wanted on and
have adventures in his souped up ship.
And then when I got older, I was like, oh no, that's kind of a dumb idea. But now I see someone in the Star Trek Picard writers' room clearly thought, like, what if we bring back like that old TOS Romulan ship? We could do it.
I guess Kid Fatheree wasn't completely insane.
And Dave, is this where you think it gets like a little too action heavy in the trailer? That you're scared it's going to be too actiony? Because we also see...
I mean, that's a general sort of slight concern of mine with everything Star Trek after Abrams' 2009 movie.
Yeah.
And
but TOS and DS9 both proved so well that you can do action in Star Trek and make it work. Both those shows had a lot of action. Almost every episode of TOS has a fist fight in it.
Right. I'll agree with that. But they also, because they weren't doing arcs, they had these really compressed little episodes, which were little morality
DS9
plays.
did a shitload of arcs.
All right. Well, I haven't seen all DS9, so I'll have to take that as I go. I liked season 1 so far, but it was very standalone-ish. A lot of standalone episodes. But I think I like it better in that format, I guess. The action, when it's accompanied with a sort of dense storyline that takes you through a morality play. And obviously we're not necessarily getting that. I don't even feel like there's sort of I don't feel there's the thoughtfulness in discussing morality in a serious way, as there was in TOS, TNG, DS9, Enterprise, and Voyager. So that is really my complaint. They do cool action, but I am not like that. That Mirror Universe action was second to none. But
You're talking about Discovery now.
Yeah, sorry, on Discovery. But I guess what I'd say is, to some degree, I don't go to Star Trek for action, or the action is a secondary concern. I like it to be there, but I like it as secondary.
No, I agree with that. But they have said that Picard is going to be less actiony than Discovery.
Yeah,
so it can still be pretty actiony, but it's not going to be as much as Discovery.
Honestly, we're about to probably talk about the thing that is just on a gut level, was my biggest issue with it, which should have been cool, which is another character that returns. They just didn't return in quite the way I wanted.
Well, I thought we were going to talk about Picard's sword fighting.
Sure, let's talk about Picard's sword fighting.
I thought this was going to be the big thing you disliked.
Nope, I actually did not realize that was Picard, I think, when I watched the trailer.
But he sword fought Guinan on the holodeck.
Yeah, so. What is he wearing? He's like in a black jumpsuit. Is that his thing that he's wearing that he just had a jacket on over earlier or something?
I think so, but
okay.
Yeah.
I don't mind that. I'm fine with him doing some action-y stuff. That's cool.
Yeah, in fact, I want to see that.
Yeah,
I don't want him to just become an action hero, but a little bit here and there is
sure.
That's true to how the character was on The Next Generation, especially true to how he was in the movies.
Yeah, he should. They should come after him, the bad guys, and he runs them over with a dune buggy.
I don't know about that, but and we also see our other Romulan character, played by Harry Treadaway, who I'm not sure if this guy is going to be a good guy or a bad guy, but we've been told that he's at odds with Eleanor. More on him in a bit. There's some actiony stuff with 7 of 9, dual-wielding some phaser rifles.
Yep. Which she looks like she's doing some sort of, I don't know, the vibe is sort of freelance troubleshooting, but she probably has like a specific mission statement to... But that's it's sort of the vibe you get.
Yeah, and she still has that 7 of 9 cold efficiency, I think, where she can just... If she wanted to be a killing machine, she could flip that switch.
I mean, that's kind of one of the fun things about 7 of 9 is it's a little bit of Data without the laws of robotics getting in your face every second.
So the thing that I guess bothered Dave is actually at the end of the trailer when we see Will Riker. There's actually the way that he's introduced to Picard is we hear the voice of a child.
Yeah.
Saying, "Dad, Jean-Luc Picard is here," or something like that.
He's kind of They're kind of yelling at each other like a dad and his kid through the. While Dad's like trying to like work in the kitchen apparently, and
he's doing the dishes.
He's like, "Shut up!"
Cool thing. Someone pointed out to me that on IMDb there is a character listed for Star Trek Picard named Kestra. Who that was the name of Troy's sister who died as a child before she was born.
So you think one of the kids is named in honor?
Yeah, that's probably like the daughter of Riker and Troy.
You know, I don't know how long they've been together, but the kid's voice sounded pretty young, and they look maybe a little old to be having kids, or at least biologically her, if she's human-ish.
They've been married for like 20 years, so I'm assuming the kid is less than 20, since they didn't have a kid.
Yeah, but that kid sounded like he was 6.
Well, the kid, I think this was a girl's voice.
Okay, that makes more sense. I thought it was a young boy.
No,
and then I was like, did Troy like have a kid at 50 or 55 or something?
I mean, with future medicine, that might be possible. But yeah,
that actually could be.
We not only do we see Riker doing the dishes in the kitchen, but we see Troy, I guess, doing some gardening in the yard.
Yep. There was something about it that felt a little bit like a retread of rustic Kirk from Generations or Star Trek V too. It's not quite. None of the visions I had of like...
No one else can live in a rural environment in Star Trek because Kirk did it. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, that's what I'm telling you. My God, you've been preparing that one? It just felt too familiar. That they both kind of like...
They both have a scene in the kitchen.
I don't think
and then Picard walks in.
You know how like everything in this like Picard's house looks super rustic? Riker's does. I do get that not everybody's going to have like touchscreens and everything everywhere, but they both felt specifically like throwbacks, and I felt that fit his personality somewhat, which is Kirk-like, but not Troy's. It didn't seem to fit her in my mind, and so I felt like this, like just one little glimpse I got felt very Riker and not very Troy, and like that sort of on some level annoyed me because I was like I'd like for her to have like show as much influence on the house as him, but yeah, it's just a glimpse.
I would have preferred to see them on the Titan, or if they were still in Starfleet. I would like Riker to be Admiral Riker.
Yeah,
something like that would have been cool. I hope that they're living in Alaska, in Riker's homeland, which our friend and frequent guest on Tex-Trek, Brian, would enjoy as a native Alaskan.
Why shouldn't they be on her native planet of Beta Z? Why does he get to make all the calls?
Well, she's half human, so maybe she likes Earth.
Maybe so. Those characters can make any decision that makes them happy. It was just a sort of gut reaction. I'll see. Of course, I was happy to see it. I liked more the scenes of Picard and Riker talking. Picard telling Riker that he's happy that he didn't try and talk him out of it. Riker's got his arm around Picard like a buddy, and Picard kind of pats his hand real familially like that, and I liked that. There was a great sense of the history.
Behind the scenes, we know that these actors all love each other, so it's fun to see them working together again.
Yeah,
for a long time, we didn't know if we would ever see that.
Mm-hmm. So you get to see that warmth brought into play and with something that feels very genuine.
Yes, and I'm sure that we'll see more TNG people show up. I don't know if they'll get everyone. The one that they've said is not going to be on the show is Michael Dorn as Worf, but that might be a dirty lie that CBS is telling us to try to trick us. I would love to see Worf just so people can see like a good looking Klingon that looks normal, assuming they would do the makeup correctly.
I thought you were just talking about Worf's handsomeness, and I'm like, he's a good looking guy. You were talking about in juxtaposition with the ugly Klingons of Discovery. Got it.
Yeah,
got it.
No, those Klingons are very ugly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean that's pretty much the trailer. We hit all the broad strokes. Did we mention Hugh? We get some more shots of Jonathan Del Arco as Hugh, and so cool to see him.
Yeah, was he deborged in those shots?
But he's kind of like 7 of 9. He's got like a little bit of Borgness,
right? They couldn't just take away every element of it,
which is a good look because 1, it has a precedent in the continuity. And 2, it's just a cool visual.
Yep.
It reminds you of this person's like connection to the Borg. And
how about that shot in there where Picard clearly having like put some piece of a puzzle together or excited that something is going on. He does like a hot dog kind of thing.
Where he claps his hands in celebration.
Yeah.
I like that. I think that's going to be when he decides to get back into the action, and he realizes how happy and thrilled and excited he is.
Yeah.
And until this point, he's probably just been bored, chilling with a bunch of grapevines.
Yeah. I mean, that doesn't sound like the worst thing to me, but Yeah,
it sounds kind of cool.
He's a man of action. Well, he's a man of action, but he's a scholar too. I guess that's one thing that doesn't show up in the trailers and probably wouldn't make for necessarily the best trailer material.
There's Jonathan Dahl.
But I hope that he is still the scholar, the archaeologist, the guy who would read a science journal just on break because it's just fun to him. I hope that all shows up. That he's a guy who can not only read people really well and interact with them well, but he's a guy who's into science and all that nerdy stuff.
I promise they're going to maintain all of that.
You can't make that promise. You don't know it. The vibe of the trailers and the vibe of all Trek since Abrams suggests to me that they could overlook Picard's intellectual capacity. We'll see. That is the area in which I have most often found myself at least somewhat disappointed with Discovery.
Yet you're the show that's already disappointed you there. You're looking more forward to it than Picard.
I told you why. It had only promising things to show me in its trailer, whereas Picard took all the promising things I liked in the first trailer and did a few things that I didn't like with them, or I had a kind of gut reaction against. I can acknowledge. It's a sort of an emotional reaction. It's not necessarily based in anything, but it's sort of an emotional reaction. So I don't necessarily... I'm not holding it against it. I'm looking forward to Picard, but that Discovery trailer, I liked more. I just did. I'd be curious to hear what our audience felt between the two of them.
Be sure
not that they need to fight, but...
Well, it wouldn't be much of a fight, because most of the hype has been around the Picard trailer, to the point where I kind of feel bad for Discovery, because it has been so... at least with the reactions I've seen online, it has been overshadowed.
Yeah.
And kind of overlooked.
Well, if nothing else, that maybe some old school fans who never entertained Discovery will come back for Picard, and then they'll be like, well, as long as I have CBS All Access...
I might as well check out this Discovery show.
Yeah, as long as I'm trying it for a month, let's take a look.
Even though you'd be surprised how big of a Discovery base there is. And
well, I know it's one of the most, according to various metrics, it's the most successful streaming original show there is. I heard that somewhere.
Not quite. I don't think it has a...
I mean, I don't know what else
Stranger Things numbers, but...
maybe not, but maybe that was running when it was current. I don't know. But yes, clearly, if nothing else, it is a strong success.
I think you're talking about the Parrot Analytics, but I don't want to chase that rabbit right now.
Fair enough.
But at Vegas, there is a huge contingent of Discovery fans. The most popular cosplay was the Pike in #1 gold uniforms. They were all over the place. The line for Sonequa Martin Green's autographs was one of the longest lines I saw there.
That's very cool.
They had to cut off Ethan Peck's photo ops.
Yeah.
There's this guy needs to go home at some point. No more pictures with him.
Star Trek Discovery was particularly poised at a volatile place. It came out after the somewhat divisive Abrams era, the Kelvin movies. It came out after a big gap. It had a different tone. They had a lot of things potentially going for or against it, or at least to cause people to have a lot of hot take, knee-jerk reactions. But yeah, it's exciting that it's actually really doing pretty well, and I suspect the best case scenario, and I think even the likely scenario, is that it will draft off of interest in Picard and continue to grow.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think that show's done growing.
Yeah, no, I don't think so at all.
But let's talk about the Picard half of the panel at New York.
Mm-hmm.
It was cool to hear the story of how this show got pitched to Patrick Stewart. They told bits and pieces of the story before, but essentially it began with Alex Kurtzman and his writers sitting around talking about the shorts that they were going to start doing with short treks. and someone had the idea of, what if we did a Picard short? What if we get Patrick Stewart to come back? And that idea evolved into, what if we could do a Picard show? And they had
before they approached Patrick Stewart?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
And they had no idea if he would say yes.
Mm-hmm.
And Patrick Stewart has talked about how he was convinced he would never play Captain Picard again. He was done with that part of his life. He had zero interest in doing it. But he did meet with he did agree to meet with Alex Kurtzman, and Akiva Goldsman was there. And as they're telling the story, Patrick Stewart mentions how how he going into this meeting, he really didn't know if this was something he would want to do. And then Akiva Goldsman corrects him. He's like, "No, you knew." You knew it was something that you didn't want to do. But the idea that Kirsten Byard came up with, he was interested enough in that where Patrick Stewart said, okay, let me see this on paper. Write it out. And they got Michael Chabon, who just came on board to write one of the short treks with them. Or I think it's actually Chabon, however you say his name. But Michael Chabon... I just said it 3 different times, I think.
That's all right.
He was supposed to write like this 4-page treatment, and he ended up writing something that's like 35 pages long, and gave it to Patrick Stewart, and Patrick Stewart was like, I love it, let's do this show.
I guess that is a, the cliche is sometimes in like Hollywood satire and stuff like that is how little, reverence there is for the writer, but it's so clear that, the writers can be make or break at times. And it's interesting that he played such a strong role. Yeah.
The way he says, like, I had an idea and I ran with it, and it was good enough for Patrick Stewart. And Michael Chabon's the showrunner on Picard now. And hopefully it's written better than, or more to my likings than his short treks.
Which we'll be talking about next week. But I think I'm somewhat in that a similar place to you.
I think his 2 short treks are okay, by the way. They're just, they weren't exactly what I wanted.
You didn't see them and say, man, I wish this guy was running the show everywhere.
Yeah.
They just didn't instill that in you.
But I've been told he's an incredible writer and other stuff that I've never checked out. But I'm hoping that he's really bringing it with Star Trek and with Star Trek Picard. But that's... pretty much the only, again, like, they're very coy. They didn't go into much detail during the panel about anything, but the only other thing that I think was really noticeable about the panel, other than, getting to see all these actors on stage, that it's exciting to get, like, these new Star Trek actors now.
Sure.
Because I don't know anything about them, and I know, like, years from now, I'll be like, oh, yeah, like, I know everything about these people. I see them at cons, and I can, just,
so you're just starting to process their vibe now.
Yeah, like, Harry Treadaway, for example. Never heard of him before in my life, but like give me a few months, and I'll promise I'll never forget his name. And anytime I see him or something, I'll be like, oh yeah, that guy's from Star Trek. That's Harry Treadaway. Yeah. He's a Romulan. So, but the reason why I mention him is because he was wearing a hat that had the Picard comm badge logo on it, and we got a good look at it for the first time, and it's cool because I know like a bunch of cosplayers they've already started making and wearing some of these Star Trek Picard Starfleet uniforms.
Yeah.
That's like the one thing that we hadn't gotten...
A lot of freeze frames going on trailers and stuff, I guess.
We hadn't gotten a great look at the comm badge, so people are generally using the All Good Things era comm badge, which is similar to this. But of course CBS licensing is going to want to sell you another QMX badge, which I'm not complaining about because I know I'm going to buy it. And you'll be able to see me on our videos wearing it at some point next year, I'm sure. But yeah, it's cool to finally have that good look for the people concerned with that. But that's pretty much all that we have on Star Trek Picard, unless you have anything that you want to throw in there.
No, I don't think so. We're kind of in an embarrassment of riches Star Trek era. I feel privileged to be able to see a Star Trek thing and say I didn't like this trailer as much as the first one. I'm like that's an okay place to be. I don't have to like.
We don't feel obligated
I don't have to be
love
ecstatic about every Star Trek trailer. There was still lots of cool stuff in there. I'm like hyped as shit to see whatever they're gonna do with that bird of prey. But yeah, that's where we are. I'm curious to hear what the general vibe is out there, what people are thinking about these. So.
Yeah. And so we're just going to wrap up talking about what we're going to be talking about in the future. And that is, going forward, we're going to be covering these short treks. There's 2 out now. Next week, we'll be talking about both of those. That's Q&A and the Trouble with Edwards. And then November 14th, we're getting Ask Not. So that's coming out on a Thursday. And that Sunday, we will have our podcast discussing it. Then in December, we're going to get 2 short treks with The Girl Who Made the Stars and Ephraim and Dot. We'll be talking about those in December. And then in January, we'll be talking about Children of Mars, what we believe is a Star Trek Picard tie-in prequel short trek. So that'll be our first taste of Star Trek Picard. And we'll be covering all of these. And then, of course, starting January 23rd, we'll have a new season of Picard to talk about.
Yeah.
Or the new season, first season of Picard to talk about.
Yeah.
So
that's crazy.
Yeah, so you're definitely going to want to hear our thoughts on that. And we're going to want to hear your thoughts. So listen to us and then tell us how you feel.
And tell us how you feel about us telling you how you feel.
Yeah, and then we'll tell you how we feel about that.
In the meantime,
live long and prosper, y'all. Thank all of you so much for checking out this installment of Tex-Trek. I hope you enjoyed it. Please be sure to like our YouTube videos and subscribe to our channel. Audio-only version of episodes are available at our website, www.tex-trek.com. Please check out our site, especially if you just want an audio-only podcast. We have that available for you. Y'all can also keep up with us online. You can follow us on Twitter, @TXTrek, or you can check us out on Facebook at www.facebook.com/tex-trek. Please, by all means, let us know what you think by dropping a comment anywhere you see fit. We definitely want to hear your feedback. Let us know what you liked and what you would like to see more of, what you would like to see differently going forward. If you want to email me directly, go ahead. I can be reached at fathereeactual@tex-trek.com. Thank all y'all again. Take care.